The last of the three unique original Norris houses was one of the few stone houses in town. The Carson and Alberta Brewer house is at 119 Dale Road. In 1996, Sarah Hilten and I interviewed Alberta and Carson about their unique house and their history in Norris.
Let's first learn about how you all got here to this house.
My interest in Norris had been heightened because I was responsible for the coverage of the sale of the town for the United Press. And the reporter that I sent out here to cover it on June the 15th, 1948, telephoned back in the middle of the morning, and he said, "I don't quite understand all this. These people are acting like it's a festival." Said there's something called the Women's Fellowship out here selling hot dogs and candy and all kinds of things to eat, and says it's a carnival sort of atmosphere. Then the report came in that after two bids, the citizens group had to drop out, and a third, the Norris Properties, bought the town. So we had been interested in it from that standpoint. It had been very much in the news. And we came out just on a Sunday afternoon ride and rode around and thought it was such a lovely place. And then you could buy milkshakes and at the little visitor center on top of the dam, and we had milkshake and crackers for Sunday night supper. And when we went back in, we were reading the paper, and I always read the classified ads just as a matter of, I found many news stories there. And I found this one that told about the little stone bungalow was for sale, and the headline said, "Live in Norris." That's what captured my attention. And this little stone cottage was advertised, and Carson and I were reading the paper, and I said, "Here's, you know, that little town we were in this afternoon, there's some houses for sale." And he said, "Well, let's go out there and look at them tomorrow afternoon." And we still had not set any date at all to be married. In fact, it hadn't been firmly established that we were going to be married.
Is this true, sir?
I think so.
But we saw this little house, and we brought Carson's city editor out to see it. And there was time, this was at the time when, the reason this house was one of the first on sale was that the people who had been living in it had been transferred to another place in the valley. And the time was not up for the people already in the houses to decide whether or not they wanted to buy them. They were given first opportunity to buy. But this one was empty, and so they had advertised it along with two or three others that were empty at that time. And you had to put down something called earnest money to make sure that you were serious about buying it before they would hold the house for you. And we were sitting in the old Norris drugstore. Norris Properties office was upstairs over the where the post office is now. And we had been talking about the house, and Carson looked at me and he said, "Alberta, this house will be about as much use to me as a drugstore if you're not going to marry me." And he said, "I'm ready to put the money down, but I have to know you're going to marry me." And I said, "Carson, let me go home and call my daddy." And I came home and called my daddy, and we decided, yes, that would be the thing. I said, "Now, I can't marry you before May because I've got to give," this was in January, "I got to give notice to the United Press, and I have to train somebody to take my place." So we set the date then as the near the 1st of May. I was going to quit my job the 1st of May, and I was going to be a housewife, having known nothing about, never having cracked an egg, washed a pair of hose, or made a bed. I was going to be a housewife. But we went ahead with the plans, and we drove down to my father's church in Macon, Georgia, My father was a Methodist minister, and he performed the ceremony at 9 o'clock in the morning, and we drove back to have dinner at what had been one of our favorite places during the courtship, up at the old place at Wallen that served real good meals. And then we came here for our first. We came into this house the day we got married.
For your honeymoon.
For our honeymoon, and they needed some little refurbishing, and we had contracted with the Norris properties to do these little things like paint the outside woodwork, and I've forgotten what all else, but they showed up the morning after we moved in to do all that work. Remember that, Carson? And I was making waffles. I decided we had a new waffle iron as a wedding present, and I decided that would be something easy to start on. And nothing was easy for me, though, I must say that. Writing a news story was a cinch, but getting a meal on the table was a horrifying experience to begin with. And I didn't know you had to do your own laundry. I had carefully bought a bunch of sheets and was busily sewing name tags on them with my brand new little sewing machine. And Evelyn Arnurius, who lived next door, came in and said, "And what are you doing?" And I said, "Well, I have to get these name tags on the sheets before the laundryman comes, because," and she looked at me in surprise, and she said, "Nobody in Norris sends sheets to the laundry." And I learned that you had to have a washing machine, or else you had to use the old Bendix machines that were then stashed for public use in the one of the old dormitories, which is now the Methodist Church Educational Building. But it was a TVA dormitory for the workmen in the very earliest days, and they had a basement area where they had a row of Bendix machines, and that was my introduction to the other part of housework beside cooking. And I had thought that they had terracotta tile throughout this house. This is the only sample visible that is left. But the whole place, and I had thought, oh, that'll be simple. You just run a wet mop over it, and I ran that wet mop over it and thought, gee, it looks so pretty while it was glistening. When it dried, it was streaked just like the sands of the desert. And I was in tears. And that's when we decided that I had to have some household help to do these floors. And I had household help to do the floors throughout our early years. And but I guess it was when our son was about 10 years old that we had the floor covered. He bumped his head on these old hard floors all through early childhood. And like other Norris children, bumped his head on these hand-wrought iron levers that latches that lift up, and they also strike little children in the head and old folks in the hips whenever you go through them in the wrong place. And we learned later why it was they built these stone houses, and I think that is an interesting story because it certainly is indicative of the economic situation at the time that Norris came into being. It was partly the town of Norris was partly a make-work town to the establishment of it for the people who had been out of work for so long. And TVA contracted with the Carpenters Union and the Bricklayers Union and several other unions to build houses of wood, shingles, brick, and left out the stonemasons. The stonemasons had been working on these beautiful gutters that we have that are really the prettiest ones I think I've ever seen. And the stone had been quarried from near the dam at the old quarry, which is easily visible from the highway now. But the stonemasons approached TVA, Ted Schultz, who was then the key man in establishing contracts with the unions.
Who lived right across the street.
He lived right across the street, and he told me this. He said, the stonemasons came and said, you've left us out of this house building, and if you will give us the contracts to build some stone houses, we will build stone houses to your plans, your floor plans, for the same price that the brick masons do it. Of course, when they went to sell them, they didn't sell them exactly at that same price, but that was how yes, she was just telling me, I didn't know that the cinder block sold for much less than this one. This house was priced in the ad at $6,450, and we had the only change that we have had made in the structure. No, there were no doors on the closets. They were all wide open. They covered them with curtains or something. And I had said, but that was one of the things that I had said before we moved. It has to have doors, and we did have those done before we moved in. They matched the doors completely, but they did not match that beautiful hand-wrought iron way. And that, incidentally, came from the foundry at Antioch College in Yellow Springs, Ohio, I believe.
Now you have rewired the house.
Not completely. Some of the wiring is the original, but as we have put in air conditioning and other things, we've put in several new lines directly. And what we did was we got rid of the old heaters. We have put in new receptacles throughout. And we got rid of the old heaters and realized that you cannot buy new receptacles that would, in a 110 line or 115 line, that would accommodate the wattage of those old heaters, so we changed the heaters. And we got along with space heaters until about 5 years ago. We put in a heat pump then. We had an air conditioner in the summer, and the space heaters in the winter until 5 years ago in May, I believe it was.
Did you use the fireplace much?
Yes, we did, and we still do use it, not as our main source of heat, but we keep a fire's laid in there now for emergencies, and always at Christmas time we have a fire.
Well, you never can tell.
You never know when you're going to have to boil your water to sterilize it when a nuclear, well, when the dam breaks.
Right, when their tornado comes through.
Yeah, you just don't know.
Is all the woodwork here the original
Yes,
woodwork?
yes, all the woodwork. I have in 2 or 3 rooms where I needed to some backdrop that would show up other things. I will show you that, and then
All right.
I have covered it, but I have not attached it to the wall. I have not spoiled the paneling. The paneling is still as is. Nothing is pasted to it. I just hung it on blind pieces of wood that didn't show, and every piece in here. That table was made by a woodworker down in somewhere in East Tennessee, and I drew the plans for it. And everything in it has to serve a dual purpose.
Go ahead, show me.
This has a drawer that goes all the way through. This houses some of my music. The drawer will open from either end. And in the early days, when we were all able to eat on the floor, we could pull this out in the middle of the floor and lift up the 2 leaves, and we'd have a large round table that would seat many more than we can seat now. But and it was done of solid cherry, and this chair was bought at the old Southern Highlanders craft shop that was in Norris.
Which one?
This rocking chair of solid cherry. It was made somewhere over in North Carolina, but it was sold at that Southern Highlanders shop, and it was the one that Carson brought me to rock our baby in. And it has served that purpose, and it's my favorite chair, and then it later became my favorite chair to play the dulcimer in. The kitchen is exactly the same size it was. We managed...
Turn on that light for me, please.
Yeah.
Okay.
We managed to get a washing machine in those early years by using an apartment-sized stove, which is very hard to find, we discovered, when it needed replacing. We did find one. But the washing machine, and there's no place for a built-in...
It's a clothes washing machine,
yeah,
not a dishwasher.
Not a dishwasher, no place for that. The portable dishwasher is here, and it serves also as a cabinet and a
Have you been happy with
countertop. Oh, more or less.
Do you
yes.
use it frequently, or
No,
do you just
no.
watch?
Carson doesn't like to use it much.
He doesn't.
But these are the original cabinets.
These are the original cabinets.
Very original. The sink has been replaced because the original one had a deep laundry tub on this side, and we enclosed the sink when we replaced it. Otherwise, these are exactly like they were.
Well, have you ever been tempted to change out the cabinetry? Or have you ever
Until I learned that if you change the cabinetry, you've got to change everything in the kitchen, and it never was feasible from that standpoint. Everything has to be changed. In order to get a stove in here, we would have to sacrifice a large refrigerator, which we weighed the possibility of and decided we needed a large refrigerator more than we did a large stove. That was it. Everything is a check-off. You have to decide. Give and take. Yes. Now this is our little display. This is made when you put an air conditioner in. I did not want to close off any of the window space, so we had them that we would be using when we sat at the table. So we did cut the window down this and set the air conditioner in there when we had it. And when they took it out, I decided it would make a nice place to display some Norris things. This piece here is made from a very different kind of clay from what most of the local pottery is made of. It was made under the direction of the late Ernie Wilson, who was head of the chief ceramist of the TVA ceramic laboratory that was down where the TVA hydraulic laboratory now is. And that little stone cottage is another relic of the stone building of that era. And if you've ever noticed, it has a plaque on the front that is showing a potter at work at the wheel. And from that pottery grew the very well-known Pigeon Forge pottery by his Ernie Wilson's son-in-law. This is a piece of pottery that an Indian gave Carson up in Cherokee. He took it out of the fire before it was completely fired and gave it to Carson. These are owls done by Manya Perkle, who was Manya Higdon. I believe she was the first baby born in Norris. And she had quite a business for a while doing owls out of rocks that she found in the river. It's from the mold that was established in the ceramic lab at TVA. This one is still used by the Pigeon Forge pottery, and tea just tastes so good out of it. This is a hand-loomed bedspread made by Carson's grandmother Winkler. Yes, do that. Carson's grandmother Winkler. And this is another example of Jean Gene's Pottery. He made that for, it's a Will Rogers jug. I like the plain side better, but it has Will Rogers in relief on it, and he made it for a special celebration in Texas, and he gave us a copy of it. This is the corner that is my family sentiment pictures, and the other corner is Carson's family, and that is that's the map that we use all the time, still do, for hiking and for every other trip that we make in this region. And that's the cover, framed cover of the first edition of our book, Valley So Wild. It's the word processor where Carson does his writing, and it has to share an outlet with the dustbuster. And this little typing table has arms that fold down, and we just use the crates for storage, and it takes up less space than a massive piece of furniture. But that's our son's handprint when he was in kindergarten. This is family mementos. These Cades Cove, we spent a lot of time in Cades Cove, and a Knoxville person had those artists, their limited edition prints of various scenes in Cades Cove. He had them framed and gave them to him for Christmas one year. So most of the things have a lot of meaning because they came either from family or friends or about. Now our bathroom, this is the original paneling in here. It's been painted white. Original ceiling, I don't believe there's another, well, there may be some more original ceilings in there. We had the tile put in, and we've changed the lavatory and the commode. That's the original bathtub. I think it had legs at one time, but they covered, when we moved here, it had been filled in with cement on the edges. So, but anyway, that's. Now this was our son's room, and it is now his room when he returns. This has a trundle bed that I use for storage. The trundle bed does pull out, but I use it so much for storage that it's easier for the two of them when they come. If I need two beds, this is a flip-top chair, and I use that for the bed. And this is my sewing table, which still serves as my desk. And this was some kind of cabinet that I bought. It hides a lot of things, including photographic equipment and other things. This was a bowl, a handcrafted bowl that was given to us down in McMinn County when we went down there. And these are very, very rare Indian baskets. This one is a double woven storage basket, the like of which is in the Smithsonian Institute, and the ones I have seen like it now in the Koala gift shop sell for hundreds of dollars. The last one I saw was $900. I use this storage basket to store Carson's columns in, and these others are. This is double woven. This is single woven river cane. They are all files, really.
What Indians make it? Are those Cherokee, or is what Indian makes those? Do you know?
Cherokee.
Yeah,
Cherokee.
all Cherokee.
All this, and this is Cherokee. This is Cherokee. And this is Cherokee. This is of the Snowbird Indians, though, which is a small clan in the Cherokee tribe, and I bought that one just a year. These baskets are getting rarer from the Indians, but.
And what's on this wall here?
This is all of our awards for various things. The most recent one was Carson's from 1995. That's last year. He was made Artist of the Year by the council. And this is the porch that is we have kept as a screen porch. And it's always had a concrete floor. We did have a new finish put on the concrete just last year, and it has been a joy. But you see, the stone, look how thick that stone is, and stone ledge. And this is another reason we haven't wanted to add on. It would have meant tearing down 12-inch thick stone walls to do it. We once considered moving the kitchen out, and that same problem came up. So we decided it was just better to make do with what we had and treat it as if it were our little cave against the world, and that's what we have done. We had the terrace and this wall built, but Carson built that big one, and it's lasted so much. He always reminds me, I had this built, and he always reminds me that his wall has lasted, whereas the terrace has been replaced already once, and it hasn't lasted so well. But Carson, why don't you go out to the yard and tell them about the yard?
We built just the stone quarry just above the dam.
Yeah. I think there are 5 stone houses in town.
Now, that includes the chimney, I presume.
That includes the chimney, yeah.
Now, and your roof, although you've replaced the roof over the years, haven't you?
We've had to replace the roof one time.
One time, only one time. And are those the original gutters?
Those are the original copper gutters.
Okay. And
If you wanted to work real hard, you could shine those things and they would look like new copper.
Now, what about the landscaping of your home over the years?
Well, the main thing, we haven't done much landscape. Well, this over here where we have this jungle now was bare packed dirt when we moved here. And I started transplanting wildflowers here, and it's very pretty in the early spring. All the flowers have bloomed and gone now.
Well, tell me, how did wildflowers do? Transplanted here.
Everything did very well that I've planted except showy orchids. For some reason they don't like to grow here. I've got...
This gives us a better idea of the size of your home from this angle. Now, it's even by conservative standards, this is a small home.
Oh yeah.
Now, tell me what you consider the pros of living in a small home like this, and the cons.
I guess the main thing I like to live in a small home is that I'm a environmentalist to some degree, and I use as little of the earth's goods as I can get by with using. The house is built of stone, which is about a good product as you can get to build a house, and there's certainly plenty of it. One of the main things I've done for the landscaping is build a stone wall below that separates the parking lot from the rest of the yard up there. It's Alberta's ivy ring. She keeps that trimmed pretty well.
And she has to go in there and literally trim it.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, it'll cover the whole yard if you don't. Oak there over to the pine tree on the other side.
So how wide is that wall? It's a good 20, 30 feet, isn't it?
Oh, it's more than that. Probably 15, 20 yards.
Now how did you actually construct this? Was this still a sloping yard here before?
Yeah.
And where did you get your building material?
Wherever I found a rock that looked like it'd be a good one.
Well, how long did it take you to collect your rocks?
Oh, I collected as I built, and it took probably the better part of a year to collect and put them in place.
Well, now, how did you keep them in place? Did you use any type of concrete?
Oh, I used mortar, yeah.
You didn't use mortar?
Yeah.
Was the porch originally screened in, or did you do that?
It was originally screened. I think we've had to put up 1 or 2 new screens since we've lived here. You know ginseng?
Yeah. Well, that's a ginseng plant.
Mm-hmm.
You found it in the wild. Did you find
No.
the berries were no?
All the ginseng I have was given to me by a man who lived in Knoxville. He had ordered the seed, I guess, and grew it, and he was moving to Chattanooga, and he didn't want to take his plants with him, so he gave them to me. Some of them are here, and some of them are, a few feet away up there.
Have you ever harvested any and
No.
used it?
I just let it multiply. You know something called golden seal?
I've heard of it.
It multiplies. It's multiplying a little too much. Here and
Native
here.
to this part?
Yeah, it's native to this part. Like ginseng, you don't find it growing in the wild much because people poach it and harvest it.
And what do they use golden seal for?
It's one of their herbal medicines, as ginseng is. Here's some more ginseng. Looks like the Japanese beetles have worked it over.